All right, I'm now at the fourth section of this first um, lecture on Miller 300, which is called Points of View. And I've got an image here of Dilios, who is the storyteller. And so storytellers are always important, as you know. And I will start with a page 9 where we see Dilios telling a story. And in this case, we are both in the narrative and watching the narrative being told. And this is a very postmodern moment. It's actually also quite modernist, to sort of point at the narrator and say, hey, watch what the narrator is doing. I mean, Thornton Wilder does this in Our Town. It's a very, very old device, but in this case, it's become postmodern. Okay, fine. Another discussion for another time. So let's look, as we look at page 9, look at the lower left corner, where we can see we're around the fire. And so this is sort of the quintessential time for telling stories. It's the evening. People are getting ready to go to bed, basically, and it's a good time to hear a story. And storytellers at the time were enormously important. Storytellers were famous. They traveled. This is how the Iliad and the Odyssey were originally heard. I mean, they weren't read, they were heard. And people committed and spent their lives committing thousands of lines of poetry to memory, and then going from place to place and reciting them. And people waited to hear so-and-so's recital of, and then there were favorites. People would say, hey, can you tell us, narrate again, the great story of the Hot Gates, the Thermopylae. And, where would you like to start? Let's just start, on the day 3, that kind of thing. So these storytellers were incredibly important. So Dilios' role here is going to be very, very important, which is why I put that picture of him. And of course, he only has one eye, right? Because the irony, this is all about irony. Because the Greek playwrights use irony heavily. I mean, it's one of their much beloved techniques. They have a number of them. They've got lots and lots of techniques, which, if you're a classic scholar, which I am not, thank goodness, because it's not for me. The classics are great, but it's not where I live. You have to learn this stuff. I mean, you have to learn all the technical terms for these things, and they're hamartia, which is the fatal flaw of the hero, like Achilles' heel is sort of your weakness, your hamartia. There's the reversal of fortune, peripetesis, I think it is peripeteia. Which is, the things are going along, and then there's a reversal of fortune, and things turn around. Like it looks as though Macbeth is winning in Macbeth, and then reversal of fortune, and suddenly he's losing. You lose everything. We still use all these techniques in the West. Okay, so here's Dilios telling a story, and he says, so we're looking down on, by now we recognize, in this discussion, we recognize a circle, a circle of people around the fire. And which he kind of Miller highlights by showing you the cloak, which is in a hemisphere, but the circle of firelight. And he says the beast circles, savoring the sun. Okay, so we're looking down at the group. Then in the little inset panel, we're looking at Dilios' face. We're looking up at it. So that means we're sitting at the fire with the men, right? So we are now one of the men looking up. Multi-perspectival, right? Then we're still at the fire looking as Dilios is telling the story, and he turns his back and he says, he showed the wolf his backside, so okay. And then Dilios turns into Leonidas. So we've gone from being above the aerial view, which, as I say, Miller likes, to being at the fire, to watching Dilios, and then Dilios becoming the character. So we've been read into the narrative, right? And then we see Leonidas' determination, he's there. And then there's the long, narrow line of the wolf following the boy into the pass. Okay, this is going to sound familiar, right? So at that point, we can connect, and we can with the color too, we can connect that long central column panel to the long panel of the top, which is the wolf approaching the boy, which is the first place we're going to look because it's the darkest thing against the lightest thing, the darkest dark against the lightest light. So your eye is probably going to go there first and go look at this and go, wow, look at this wolf and this kid with this dick, you know. Okay, so then we are back. So we're going to sort of go up, come back down into this T. And then we see this thin space between the two rock faces, you know, this narrow pass. And then the wolf comes through, gets stuck, and Leonidas kills it. And we're back to Dilios. His form is perfect. So he's miming what Leonidas does in the storytelling. Okay, so why is this important? Well, it's a story that's being told, and it also is proleptic. That is, it looks ahead to. It is foreshadowing directly of what is going to happen. Like, this is the story of the 300, right? Where the trick is to lure the wolf into a space where it can't use its force, and where intelligence and willpower and the willingness to die trump sheer force. That's the idea. That's the whole plan of the 300. And the reason that Xerxes moves into the hot gates, into the pass, is because he doesn't believe that anybody will do this. First of all, what small force would take on a force that's so big as his? And second, who's going to die for this? For an idea? Who would do that? And third, who's going to be tough enough to stand up? So the Xerxes is like, none of that's going to happen. But this is a story, this is a war story that we dearly love. We love this story. And especially we love it if everybody gets killed. So the same thing happens, say, with the Battle of Britain. Now, not everybody gets killed, thank God, in the Battle of Britain. But basically, the absolutely undersupplied, underserved, underserviced nascent British Air Force flying Spitfires goes up against the massively supplied, oversupplied German Luftwaffe, which is flying against England every day. They've got all kinds of planes, they've got all kinds of people, they've got unlimited resources. It's just the beginning of the war. They haven't begun to tap their resources yet. And they are bombing this is the Blitz, or they're bombing London, and they're going to bomb it flat. And the British hold out, and they hold out, and they hold out, and they hold out, and they hold out, and it gets grimmer and grimmer. And eventually the Germans are like, why have they not surrendered? What is the matter with these? Okay, back off. We'll go somewhere else. We'll go fight somebody else. We love that story. It's the underdog, David and Goliath story. And, of course, our people are always David, and the other people are always Goliath. So we don't recognize that story when it's reversed. When Canada and America and the NATO countries went to Afghanistan, we were Goliath, right? Oh, no. No, we're always David. Anyway, so this is the points of view. So the reason that you got this picture of these of this story that Dilios is telling us, it's the whole narrative of 300 in one page. Okay. Then we have what is a shot reverse pattern from film, basically. And Miller at this point has worked in film enough to know, he already is smart about film, but by now he's actually directed films, and he's worked with Rodriguez doing Sin City. He wrote RoboCop, the second and third RoboCop, the second one. He's written film, he's directed film, he knows about film. And so here we have Leonidas, who's this little tiny figure with his little red cloak. His plain little red ragged, wool cloak. And so we're looking down at him from the perspective of Xerxes. And so here's Xerxes, and we're looking up at Leonidas, right? So which means we're Leonidas. I mean, in this case, we're looking up at Xerxes. Jeez. So which means that we are in the position of being Xerxes. So on the left-hand side of the page, we are Xerxes looking down at little Leonidas. This little one man, that's it. This is the one person. And here he is in all his glory. Here is Xerxes in all his glory, with all his gold bling on him, and all of his piercings, and okay, whatever. And and then here he is on his throne. So now I'm on to the sort of panel 1, 2, 3. It would be panel 4, basically, where there are these carven images, graven images, of course. And there's no Christianity yet, so we don't have to worry. We don't have to worry about that. But the Jewish God was like no carven images. However, the Spartans are not Jews. The Spartans they would follow basically the Greek gods. Okay. And so it turns out, and then the page is that second panel, fourth panel, pardon me, where we see Xerxes at the top, the stairway, with the carven images, is actually being held up by all these slaves. And then there's little Leonidas, right, which is going to be very important, the underdog. And the page is nearly divided, and this is where Miller is really smart about this, is nearly divided by the plinth that they're carrying Xerxes on. So there's sort of the extravagant, crazy guy up above, and the plain, sane guy down below, who is sort of your Clint Eastwood, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Vin Diesel, Jeremy Renner, Marky Mark, sort of characters, this smart ass, kind of laconic, because he doesn't come from Laconia, but who's not taking anybody's crap. He says, let me guess, you'd be Xerxes. Oh yeah. So this is a shot reverse pattern, right? So we're looking down, and then the camera turns around and looks up, and then we're looking up, and the camera turns around and looks down again. And so we are in both positions at the same time. Now we tend to look past this stuff and just go, oh yeah. It's like, stop, right? Don't take anything for granted. Look at what the comic artist is telling you. Okay. All right. And so now we come to this page where Dilios is being dismissed. And he's being dismissed because somebody's got to carry the story, right? And Dilios is like, oh, this is a great shame for him. Okay, but he's going to carry on the story. Okay. And so there's a little film strip, effectively, in the center of the left side of the panel. So we've got the left side, Leonidas is basically saying, okay, that's it, you got to go off and tell your story. And this is a little, like, shot reverse pattern, and tick. So the camera's going, it's on Leonidas, it's on Dilios, it's on Leonidas, it's on Dilios, which is exactly how a film would represent this. You use two cameras, and you shoot it twice, and at least. And you shoot one person's lines, and you shoot the other person's line, and then you cut them together, and you get the reaction shots. And you've got to put all this together, and it takes a lot to create the illusion of people having a conversation, because you can't just film it all at the same time. You're going to film yourself. You can't, unless it's very postmodern indeed. And then the two-part ways, right? Gone. And so there's the silhouette of Leonidas, and here comes Dilios with one eye. And so again, this is I was talking about this. Yeah, this one must have been what happened when I got so rudely cut off by QuickTime. But basically, the irony of this is one of these. Oh yeah, I was talking about this before, wasn't I? Is that the person who sees the most, and usually there is a seer, S-E-E-R, is in the plays, the famous plays about Oedipus. It's usually Tiresias, who's the blind seer. He's blind, right? But he can see everything. He's foresighted. And so that tradition is a really old one. It's just part of their irony. The same thing happens in Dune, right, where Paul Atreides, it's Greek. That's the point. They are Greeks, not Romans. That's the point about the Atreides family. House Atreides is Greek, not Rome. Yeah. They come to learn about not to conquest. Anyway, that Paul eventually loses his sight, but has inner vision. Okay. So then Dilios basically begins to collect the story, around him. And then we have this panel of there in the background is the, geez, there in the background is the hillock, or the hill, basically the stone, whatever it is, outcropping with the Spartans. And here's Dilios in the foreground, because now the story becomes the most important thing. If you don't tell people, if you don't basically have media to want to explain what a great thing you just did, people will forget. Can't do that. Can't do that. So then the next one, the next page, 68 to 69, is another one of these double page spreads, which we're now used to, where we can see again this S curve, right? Where we got light with some dark in it, and dark with some light in it. Oh, so another yin-yang panel, if we pull back from it and look at the figure-ground relationship. We will also see that this page is about, this double page spread is about seeing. The leftmost thing that we see is Ephialtes and his eye. So he has this outsized, bulging eyeball. So it's all about vision. And so on the left side, we are seeing the Spartans fight the Immortals, and we appear to be with the Immortals. And as we appear to be with the silhouettes, I'm still in the leftmost panel, the leftmost page, page 68. You'll see the Immortals near the top of that page with the rectangular shields. It turns out we're actually with the Immortals. If you just drop down a little bit, you'll see an arm with a spear pointing, or with an arrow. Yeah, it's an arrow. Yeah, it's a bow. So we are pointing, we are in the position of the Immortals. We're looking at the Spartans. Okay, fine. Then it turns around, and we are the Spartans looking at the Immortals, right? And how do we know we're the Spartans? Well, we have this little window. It's literally a framing device. So we have the window of looking out from the bronze helmet, which has the cut in it. The cut is going to be very important. And we see the Immortals coming at us. And no matter where we look, so, we see them coming straight at us, look up to the left, look up to the right. It's like no matter where we look, enemies all around. And so we are looking out and looking in. So we have, again, a shot reverse pattern. So we're looking out. So we are the soldier. Then we're looking at the soldier. Then we're looking out from the soldier's point of view. Then we're looking at the soldier. Then we're looking out from the soldier's point of view again. We are the soldier again. So we're looking at the soldier again. So this now sort of Miller is bringing all this stuff together that we've talked about and into a page like this, which is enormously complex because it's about points of view. Right? It's about where are you in the battle. And he's trying to show you the whole battlefield without pulling completely back and just showing you a battle map, which is not going to be of interest to really anybody except people who are gamers. Okay.